All right, we're going to go ahead and start the September 9th meeting of the Raytown Charter Commission. And as soon as Lisa's ready, we'll take a recall or a vote. It's called roll call.
All right.
Jim Azure. Ted Bowman.
Here.
Susan Dolan.
Here.
Janet Emerson.
Here.
Lisa Emerson here. Jason Green. Here. Steve Gunther.
Here.
Sandra Hartwell.
Here.
Michael McDonough.
Here.
Charlotte Wilson.
Here.
Mark Moore.
Here.
Mary Jane Van Busker.
Here.
Greg Walters.
I did hear from Greg. Has anybody heard about Jim, or is he just possibly going to be late? We don't.
He may be coaching or something.
Okay.
I don't really think I know his coaching season right now.
Right.
Oh, great.
Okay. Right. I know about Greg. All right. We're going to open up for public comment. This is where we allow anyone from the general public to have an opportunity to speak regarding the issues of the charter, from what has already been passed, or their ideas for upcoming articles and section. Each individual will have 3 minutes, and we have allowed for a total of 21 minutes for this section. So if anybody would like to speak, and I see 2 people in the audience, so if either or both want to speak, we can just take your turn. Somebody can come up forward first. You're both good? Okay, super. Anybody else that would like to speak? See them? Okay. And then, as far as the chair goes, I'd like to address a couple of things before we get started. And one of those has to do with some things that from people that I've run into, obviously around Raytown, as I do my normal things, and I've been trying to educate them as to some of the things that the charter has gone through already. I think the hot topic also hit Randy's papers, but so I just want to clarify a couple things. That section was actually composed by myself with some input from Jason, and it was after a lot of research that was done, so it wasn't an arbitrary decision to not include in the city administrator's section as of yet a chance for an extension to the non-residency, or actual a waiver of the non-residency. I think Jason and I reviewed some 26 or 7 out of 39.
Yeah, I've actually not review more. I was motivated to review more, so
yeah, I mean, so we actually spent a lot of time researching that, and when we put together the final copy of this, I just want to let everybody know that we based it on the facts that we found out through the MML, because the MML actually has in their own model charter on page 24 information on the city manager, and the model charter actually calls for the city administrator to be a resident of the city, and the only thing that they actually grant, or possibly would grant, would be an extension, but so they do not suggest a waiver to it. So the MML doesn't, and I would say probably at least, as far as we know right now, 80 to 90% of the other charters, we haven't read them all, actually follow this same guideline, as far as they'll either waive, first, some of them will not even give an extension, some of them will not even give a waiver, some will give just an extension, and some will just give a waiver. But the waivers are in the neighborhood of 2/3 to 3/4 of the actual Board of Aldermen or City Council members that are voting. there's every opportunity to still include language in this because, like this into the charter, if it's so moved by the citizen, comments and so forth, because this is just a draft still. What we're trying to write is a draft, and we will eventually go back through some of the items that may be of contention and try to address them, maybe a little bit more, but again, it's just like writing an essay. You come up with a draft, and then you revise it, and you try to make a final copy before you actually put it out there. So I just want to caution everybody that the information we're trying to put together right now is still a draft of a charter, and there's always a possibility that things can be revised from what we approve and go from there. But the consensus is, and even what we found in our own ordinances, that this is one of the Raytown ordinances too that also includes the fact that the city administrator would have to have residency in Missouri. So again, we're just continually following what is already currently on the books in the city of Raytown also. So I don't want to presume anything, but I just wanted to make sure all the facts were heard, because I don't see this as being something that should be a contention. The vote was pretty clear last meeting. It was a 10-2 vote. That to me is not a vote that would say we were divided, but it was a pretty majority vote that all agreed on the same thing. And lastly, I want to give everybody an opportunity to come up and be heard. So if there's any citizens of Raytown that want to follow through on this, we'll be more than happy to talk to them here. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And then I'll go to the secretary.
I have no news to report, just an approval of the minutes.
All right, do I have a motion? I did go through the minutes again very thoroughly. I did not find one instance of something that wasn't as per what we reviewed last session. Unless somebody else has found something, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Jen. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Any further discussion on it? Okay, take a vote, please.
Mary Jane Van Buskirk,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Jason Green,
Yes.
Marvin Moore,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Sandra Cornell,
Yes.
Charlotte Nelson,
Yes.
Susan Dolman,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Mike Montana.
Yes.
All right. We're going to go to the treasurer's report. Anything updated, Mark?
Nothing's been updated, Mr. Chairman, still the same, but the balance is $9,900, MML $100.
All right, thank you. Seeing that there was no changes, I don't think we'll need to vote on any of that as of this point. I guess we'll go with some old business. If we go back to section 310, and I know this is a little bit tedious, but I'd like to clean up section 3.10. I did some additional research, and it might not be in your packet, but I gave it to Lisa, and I'll let her read it. A lot of the other charters that I reviewed actually separated our section G into two separate divisions. One of them being the effective date of the legislation, and then also a second one on authentication and recording. So what I'm going to do is I'll have Lisa read each one of those, and then we'll do some comments on it. I don't think it's actually in your minutes or anything else, because I don't think it was, we both didn't have a chance to follow up to get you this, but I think it's pretty simple how it's been recorded in other charters. And so if this is something we can agree to, I'd like to get it cleaned up before we move on on to some other stuff. So Lisa, could you read section G, please, the 3.10?
3.10 Legislative Proceedings. G. Effective date. Every adopted ordinance and resolution shall become effective immediately upon passage, adoption, and approval by the mayor, including deemed approval by the mayor, failing to either sign or disapprove the same within 7 days of receipt, as provided in article, section, whatever it will be, or any later date specified therein, including deemed approved, I assume.
No, and again, this is real consistent with other charters. So if there's some comment or something that we might be able to do with this, I mean, she could read it again.
What's the essence of the change?
Well, again, we never did finish 3.10G.
This was the discussion about what it means.
Correct.
That was tied up with the veto.
That's correct, I believe so. Well, no,
I know it doesn't have a veto in it, but that's the reason that we went.
that's correct. And I found in the other charters, Ed, that the other charters were very specific not to address the veto thing in this.
Motion to approve.
Okay. All right, we do have a motion to approve section G. She'll read it again. Is there somebody that might want to second it? All right, Jason, thank you. We will reread G. Yes.
3.10G. Effective date. Every adopted ordinance and resolution shall become effective immediately upon passage, adoption, and approval by the mayor, including deemed approved by the mayor failing to either sign or disapprove the same within 7 days of receipt, as provided in article whatever, section whatever, or any later date specified therein.
All right, any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. I didn't see, Danny, did you have something? Oh, okay. I just saw you reach. All right, then we'll take a vote.
Michael McDonough.
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Buskirk.
Yes.
Jim Asia.
Yes.
Susan Dolan.
Yes.
Charlotte Nelson.
Yes.
Jason Green.
Yes.
Janet Emerson.
Yes.
Steve Gunther.
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Sandra Hartwell.
Yes.
Mark Moore.
Yes.
Ted Bowman.
Yes.
I believe that was an unanimous decision. Thank you for that. Now she'll read section 3.10H, which deals with authentication and recording. Sorry.
3.10H. Authentication and recording. All ordinances and resolutions adopted by the Board of Aldermen shall be authenticated by the signature of the mayor and city clerk. The city clerk shall then record the adopted ordinance or resolution per article section.
And that article and section she's referring to is the article and section that's already been approved as far as how the city clerk will record the information that's been approved at Board of Alderman meetings.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Ken. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jen. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a vote.
Sandra Hartwell.
Yes.
Charlotte Nelson.
Yes.
Steve Gunther.
Yes.
Ted Bowman.
Yes.
Jason Green.
Yes.
Jim Major.
Yes.
Susan Dolan.
Yes.
Michael McDonough.
Yes.
Mark Moore.
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Buskirk.
Oh, yeah.
Janet Emerson.
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes.
Again, not hearing any no's. It's a unanimous approval. I appreciate that. That finishes section 3, or article 3 at this time. We'll move on to article 5, which we're currently in, but at our last meeting, Ted made a and this is something we talked about last meeting, but apparently never finished up. So we have a motion. Anyone would like to second that motion to remove clerical from that description?
Second.
Thank you, Susan. Any other discussion? We'll take a vote then.
5.3a, I'm just reading the first sentence. The city clerk shall be appointed on the basis of their qualifications.
All right, we'll take a vote.
Mary Jane Van Buskirk,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Charlotte Wilson,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Jim Major,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Jason Green,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes.
Again, seeing unanimous approval, I thank you on that. We'll now begin in our review of the city administrator. If everybody remembers, we went through under his powers and duties the first 5 of those. We'll start with item number 6 under the duties of the city administrator, and I'll just read them and we'll go through one by one. 6 is submit to the Board of Aldermen and make available to the people a complete report on the finances and administrative activities of the city as of the end of each fiscal year.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none.
Charlotte Wilson,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Jim Major,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Buskirk,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Jason Green.
Yes.
Motion carries 12-0. Number 7. And again, this list is not an exhaustive list. If in the future anybody else comes up with any known duties or powers that we need to include on this, we can always add them. So I'm just going through the ones that I have found through other charters and in the MML. So number 7 is keep the Board of Aldermen fully advised as to the financial condition and future needs of the city.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion? Any discussion? Jeannie?
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Buskirk,
Yep.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Jason Green,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Charlotte Wilson,
Yes.
Jim Major,
Yeah.
Ted Bowman.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to do something a little bit different here. This is getting a little tedious for each one of these. Exactly, and that's what takes so long. I mean, we spent some time on this. If anybody has something to do with a specific duty or power, as I read it, I'm going to read all the rest of them. And if there's something that stands out that somebody wants to address, we'll address that individual one. But I'm hoping we can just approve the rest of these and move on to compensation. So, all right. Make recommendations to the Board of Aldermen concerning the affairs of the city and facilitate the work of the Board of Aldermen in developing city policy. That's number 8. Number 9, make such other reports as the Board of Aldermen may require concerning operations. Number 10, provide staff support services for the mayor and board of aldermen. I actually added board of after and. Okay. Number 11, assist the board of aldermen in developing long-term goals for the city and strategies to implement these goals. Number 12, encourage and provide staff support for regional and intergovernmental cooperation. Number 13, promote partnerships among the board of aldermen, staff, and citizens in developing public policy and building a sense of community. Keep an updated list on file in the office of the city clerk designating qualified individuals that may exercise the powers and perform the duties of the city administrator during a vacancy of the position.
That may or could. Yeah.
Did I read it wrong?
Could in the recent.
I'm sorry. Thank you for pointing that out. So, could is the word. And then, item 15, perform such other duties as are specified in this charter or may be required by the Board of Aldermen. Does anybody have any items that they'd like to discuss further? Susan?
9, make other such reports as the board may require concerning operations. Might be, possibly a good idea to leave that open just to say that they make such other reports as the board may require. Not limiting it to just operational reports.
The last one, I covered that though. Maybe, yeah, or maybe require a report.
Yes, Mary Jo.
City administrator is in charge of operations, so I would try to take that out.
So as not to limit the types of reports that the board may request of the city administrator.
And what they're saying, Susan, is that's actually item 15 where they have opened that up to certain other things. So what we were just trying to do is be a little bit more specific in separating out concerning operations from other things that the Board of Aldermen may request of the city administrator.
I see how 15 does cover that. Thank you.
All right. Any other board discussion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Janet. Michael, seconds. All right, we will take a vote.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Jim Asia,
Yes.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Buskirk,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes, Mark Moore,
Yes.
Charlotte Nelson,
Yes.
Jason Green.
Yes.
Again, if anybody else has any other things that they know might be, need to be included, I will just bring them to the board between now and the time we get a chance to review this a second time. All right, we'll move on to section C, compensation. Yes. All right, under compensation, it says, the Board of Aldermen shall fix the city administrator's comprehensive compensation plan by ordinance, but no ordinance changing any such compensation shall become effective for the city administrator until the commencement of the new contract term in office, nor shall be made written 120 days prior to a new contract term. The 120 days is a little bit different from the 180 days that we have specified earlier for the Board of Aldermen or the mayor. And I just thought that in the case of the city administrator, since they're actually done by contract, it should be actually a little bit less time, but that's open for discussion. Yes. Yes, Sean.
So if the city administrator is getting a review and does really well, and the board of aldermen want to give him a raise, then that raise can't go into effect until the end of that contract?
really what it says because it's based on the compensation plan that's approved per contract. I mean, that's the way I'm reading it. So if in the contract that the city signs with the city administrator, it allows for a increase in that period of that, during that 3 years, the only time it can't is 120 days prior to the new contract, which because it'll be renegotiated in that new contract. Is that, I mean,
compensation plan, in other words, does not require a single set annual fee every year.
Right.
I hope I wrote that right, unless.
Change the plan.
But isn't that position vacant? Doesn't that position,
Right.
roll up?
Well,
If you
Cost
write
of
it,
living allowance every year.
if you write it.
If you write it in, yeah.
I guess my concern would be that if let's say every June, he's supposed to get a personnel review and a discussion of increased compensation, and the review doesn't happen until October or December, then you miss a large portion there. As far as,
We call that a violation of the contract.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, though.
Well, but that's not our fault.
I mean, and if in the contract it says each June you should get the review and you don't get it, then what happens?
Well, I think in that case, it would be up to the individual to make note to the Board of Aldermen that they haven't received their review and that they would request it. I mean, I think that's pretty standard contract.
Provided it's even for the contract.
Right. So,
You have a compensation plan right now, I believe, for a couple of elected officials that says that they will get increases.
Right,
right.
Regular,
right.
and there's no condition on that, it just happens. And you could certainly put conditions on that, but the compensation plan will have that written in. Well, I think all they're trying to say is that when you have a compensation plan during your contract term, you can't decide to change it until the contract.
Right. But you have talking about elected officials, and then you're talking about staff.
And this would be about staff.
Right.
In that case, it's a flat out signed contractual agreement.
Right.
And this is just denying the option to renegotiate that contract until it expires. In other words, if I'm a city administrator and it's a 3-year term and a year and a half through the term, I decide I've got another job offer, and I want to go do that unless you change the terms of my contract.
Right.
This prohibits that.
And Charlotte, I did try to write this based on what the current relationship with the city administrator and the city is. I mean, and if I worded it in a way that might be confusing, do you have a suggested alternative?
I gotta think about it. Because I want to make sure that,
And I do believe we have it right in 3-year terms contracts. I believe. For my review, that's what we did. That's what we did.
okay, I gotta think about that.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Or we do have a motion on the floor to approve in a second. Any other discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
What's the word right before the number 120?
Written.
Read something.
Oh, okay.
Shouldn't that word be within?
Within, yeah, exactly. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to be sure I wasn't misreading.
All right, we'll make that correction. And I'll have Lisa read it. Thank you for catching that. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. And again, Charlotte, if you do find something that's different, we still have an opportunity to change this, okay?
5.5C, compensation. The Board of Aldermen shall fix the city administrator's compensation plan by ordinance, but no ordinance changing any such compensation shall become effective for the city administrator until the commencement of a new contract term in office, nor shall be made within 120 days prior to a new contract term.
Yes.
Jason Green.
Yes.
Steve Gunther.
Yes.
Ted Bowman.
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Mary Jane Van Buskirk.
Pass.
Jim Asher.
Yes.
Michael McDonough.
Yes.
Susan Dolan.
Yes.
Charlotte Nelson.
Yes.
Mark Moore.
Yes.
Janet Emerson.
Yes.
Sandra Horwell.
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Buskirk.
Is that a no?
I don't know.
Abstain.
No.
Okay.
Section C passed. Put that up. Section C does pass 11 to 1, if I'm correct with that number. All right, we'll move on to D, term and removal. It's written, the city administrator may serve for an indefinite, it should be indefinite number of, well, yeah,
Or indefinite term, 3-year contract, or it can't be indefinite.
But you just take out that whole adjective there.
indefinite.
They serve for a term,
Yeah.
3-year contract term.
Okay,
Or term 3 years.
Yes.
Where this and needs to be added.
okay.
Right, contract.
Let me read what I actually wrote because it didn't get transcribed the way I had actually written it, and I'll see if this makes sense. The city administrator may serve for an indefinite number of 3-year contract terms and for as long as they possess all qualifications for the office. What's that? Yeah, I know. It just didn't get, again, transcribed. Does anybody have issues with that word? Yes. The city administrator may serve for an indefinite number of 3-year contract terms and for as long as they possess all qualifications for the office. The city administrator may be removed by a 2/3 vote of the entire Board of Aldermen on its initiative.
Did you mean to leave out that the city administrator shall hold office at the pleasure of the board? I'm not arguing for it one way or the other, it's there, I'm wondering if you meant to.
And you're right, Ted, I did not put that in there, but I think it is because we've included it in other sections. So, let me see.
Yes.
No, it's not another. All right, so Ted, you want to?
You want me to read?
Yeah, please.
The city administrator may serve for an indefinite number of 3-year contract terms and for as long as they possess all qualifications for the office. The city administrator shall hold office at the pleasure of the Board of Aldermen and may be removed by a 2/3 vote of the entire Board of Aldermen on its initiative. Is that accurate?
I think so, yeah.
Read it back again.
The city administrator may serve for an indefinite number of 3-year contract terms and for as long as they possess all qualifications for the office. The city administrator shall hold office at the pleasure of the Board of Aldermen and may be removed by a 2/3 vote of the entire Board of Aldermen on its initiative.
discussion then on, item D? Anybody want to add anything else? Again, I think we've been trying to make it consistent. Yeah, Jim? Yes, sir.
I guess my question would be is, he's not an elected official, he's hired under contract. And should they just choose to remove him, they could, but they would have to pay his full contract, remaining contract.
You provided that's part of the contract,
Right.
which typically it is.
Right, because unless he's done something to warrant being removed from his job.
Correct.
Okay. And I'm assuming that that would be specified in the contract, what he could or couldn't do.
And
Well,
it,
the board could choose not to put that in the contract at all, but you'd have a hard time hiring a
Yeah.
city administrator.
but it's pretty clear in his current contract how that is done. So. Again, we're not trying to define his contract here, we're just trying to set some guidance.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Janet. Any other discussion?
Second.
Or motion second? Yes, sir. Lisa, can you read it, please, as you have it?
5.5D, term and removal. The city administrator may serve for an indefinite number of 3-year contract terms and for as long as they possess all qualifications for the office. The city administrator shall hold office at the pleasure of the Board of Aldermen and may be removed by a 2/3 vote of the entire Board of Aldermen on its initiative.
Any other discussion?
I do have a question. Before, when we wrote entire Board of Aldermen, were we not changing that to make sure it wasn't an issue of every Board of Aldermen had to be present to do that? Did we phrase it a different way? Or is this what you want to?
I'm not sure that it shouldn't be the entire board.
Oh, that's fine. I just
Yeah,
checked.
on something like this, I think it should be. All right, we have a motion, a second, and we've had a second reading. Seeing no other discussion, we'll take a vote.
Jim Major,
Yeah.
Lisa Emerson Pass, Charlotte Nelson,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Busker,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Jason Green,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson. Abstain. It just seems hard to get everybody together, just in case.
That yes or no? Abstain.
Okay. All right, so at a vote of 11-0 and 1 abstention, motion passes. We'll move on to item E, performance review. Again, this is very consistent with other charters, and so the city administrator shall receive from the Board of Aldermen at least once annually a performance review. Each performance review shall be made part of the confidential personal file of the city administrator.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor in a second. Any other further discussion? Okay, Sandy, was it you that motion? And who seconded?
I was the second.
Okay, who was the first? Grayson, okay. Any discussion?
So would the performance review be tied to the contract term?
Yes. Yes, tied to the contract.
As far as when the ordinance is passed, the city administrator and the contract?
Just given the contract.
And usually it's based on what is actually written in the contract as far as the reviews. So based on the, what's in the charter and what's in that, the actual written contract, for the city administrator, that's the things that are to be reviewed. So it's pretty clear. Yes.
I guess my concern though is if that isn't done, then is there any recourse the city administrator has besides asking for it again and again to see?
Well, Ted and I kind of had this discussion last night. And again, I mean, we're not here to try to
I understand that.
enforce anything or make something happen, but I mean, I think we need to include such language in the charter, so that there's an avenue for, both, the city administrator and the board of aldermen to respond. Yes, Ted?
I think if you put it in the chart, you've already included those things about what happens to elected officials if they don't. It'll become part of the charter. You have to do it. If you don't do it, you're in violation of the charter. If you don't want to put it in the contract, you don't have to do that. I mean, I say you, I'm operating on your own current board. The board would not have to put that in the contract if they don't want. I had to yield to the position that it probably should be in there.
Right.
I thought it would be hard to have a large group do an evaluation on one person, but it really doesn't matter whether it's difficult or not.
Right.
Hey, it's the right thing to do, we need good business.
Right.
And if you put it in the charter, the board's got no choice. They have to. How much heart they put into it,
Yeah.
but it's a matter of whether or not you want to require that they do it. And I think it's a matter of good business.
I agree. I mean, I think it should be done every year, and at least once annually. I just want to make sure that the city administrator does not receive that, at least once annually. Then, you know, of course, the board of alderman mayor should be held accountable.
Yeah,
Because
you'd
they're the ones that do it.
be in a tough position because we've already written that if you don't follow this charter, then it's grounds for forfeiture.
And then forfeiture of
Law.
laws. Yeah, probably not.
Any other board discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Would you like to reread it? Then we'll vote.
5.5E, Performance Review. The city administrator shall receive from the Board of Aldermen at least once annually a performance review. Each performance review shall be made part of the confidential personnel file of the city administrator.
All right, we'll take a vote.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Jim Asia,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Charlotte Wilson,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Buskirk,
Yes.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes, Jason Green,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell.
Yes.
Thank you. We will now move on to, we'll move on to 5.6. This is the acting city administrator. It's pretty much worded based on the same thing that we've had for other acting positions like the acting city clerk, but it says during a prolonged absence of our, it should be absence or disability of the city administrator, the Board of Aldermen shall, by majority vote, appoint an acting city administrator based, when possible, on the city administrator's filed recommendation letter. If a vacancy in the office of the city administrator occurs, the Board of Aldermen shall, by majority vote, appoint an acting city administrator until such time as the Board of Aldermen shall, by majority vote, appoint a new city administrator.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Any discussion?
Steve, is this generic with, that runs with the other charters?
It pretty much is, and it's very similar to what we've tried to write for the other positions, like you mentioned. Yes, Lisa?
5.4, acting city clerk. Is that supposed to be an of or an or?
I didn't hear that.
Say that again, please, Lisa.
For the acting city clerk in 5.4, I need to go back and see if what we approved was
Of or. The one word we changed here.
It looks like we approved or, so I just didn't have it in this version of the document. Okay, we're good.
All right, she'll check on that. So,
We're good.
we're good. All right, so we do have a motion on the floor and a second. Any other discussion? Yeah, Mark, did you have something? All right. We'll take a vote, please.
5.6, acting city administrator. During a prolonged absence or disability of the city administrator, the Board of Aldermen shall, by majority vote, appoint an acting city administrator based, when possible, on the city administrator's filed recommendation letter. If a vacancy in the office of the city administrator occurs, the Board of Aldermen shall, by majority vote, appoint an acting city administrator until such time as the Board of Aldermen shall, by majority vote, appoint a new city administrator.
Is that what everybody's got? If that's the case, we'll vote.
Mark Moore.
Yes.
Charlotte Wilson.
Yes.
Jason Green.
Yes.
Mary Jane McBusker.
Yes.
Ted Bowman.
Yes.
Janet Emerson. Susan Dolan.
Yes.
Jim Major.
Yeah.
Michael McDonough.
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Sandra Hartwell.
Yes.
Steve Gunther.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ted.
the question about the acting city clerk, as she read this 5.6, 5.4 is identical with the exception of the word administrator.
Right.
Did that solve the question?
Yeah, I think so. I think she solved it too, like looking back. Yeah, we do have order. All right, motion carries unanimously. Anybody want to start with 5.7, city attorney? Or is there, let me just kind of go through. Has everybody had a chance to read this section on the city attorney and maybe review it with other charters? I know that in compiling this, I did write it based on at least 4 other charters and the MML suggestions. So if anybody's got something that they want to add, do we need to read each one of them, or can we just vote on this whole section?
Chairman,
Yeah, Jim.
we vote on the whole.
I'll second that.
All right. Any other discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Ted?
Under eligibility, the last sentence, points of term for that attorney. There are no, I presume here, there are no penalties for such a contractor or contract attorney ending that in midterm. I'm not looking for any, I just want to make sure I understand correctly. You're just placing a term on there so that the contractor or employee knows what to expect.
Exactly. Yes, I'm sorry.
Members on the board currently. Is the contract with the city attorney now just 2 years? Does anybody know?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said, does anybody know if the contract now is just 2 years for the city attorney?
I did not know currently, Sandy. I was not able to do.
I guess I'm wondering if we're making the city administrator a 3-year term, should we not be looking at that for the next most important thing, this person in administration?
Okay. Well, the only thing I can answer to that is that 2 years seem to be very consistent with other charters, and that's the only thing that I can say to that. I wish I knew exactly.
That's fine.
Yeah. really doesn't say on the city website, what the length of term is for the city attorney. Jason?
I don't know, but I would say that I think it'd be good to have different terms in the city administrator, that there's some kind of continuity in case people leave, come and go, you know. I mean, she'd hope, I guess, to.
Yeah, any kind of overlap is good.
Yeah, but still, you know, I think it'd be good to do that.
Yeah, Jim?
Yeah, I don't think it's a critical thing. I think what you really want is at least some continuity, and if you go year by year, kind of takes away from that. So, a 2-year term or a 2-year contract to me would be more appropriate, maybe even more than a 3-year term of contract, because attorneys tend to want to renegotiate more.
We could always reduce it to 1. I said we could always reduce it to 1. All right, we do have a motion and a second to approve all these as one item. Any other discussion regarding that? Seeing none, we'll take a vote to read all these as one item. Let's vote on it.
Are we voting on the entire thing? Or
There was a motion, yeah, there was a motion and a second to it.
are we voting on reading it or voting on the whole thing?
We're going to vote on the whole thing, but it will be read in its entirety before we vote.
Okay.
Okay.
Please yell at me if I get any words wrong as we go, so I make sure I'm correct here.
Well, we have to vote on the motion. We have a motion and a second.
Right up your motion.
Oh, okay. Let's just vote on it. We don't have to read it now. We just need to vote.
Oh, sorry.
We'll do it after this.
I'm very confused. Okay. So it's just voting to read it.
Right. Yes.
Very good. Okay.
Steve Gunther,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Jim Asia,
Yes.
Susan Dolman,
Yes.
Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Charlotte Nelson,
Yes.
Jason Green,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Buskirk, Janet Emerson, Mark Moore.
Yes.
Okay, now you can read it. Go ahead and read it.
Okay. 5.7, City Attorney. The city shall retain the services of an attorney or law firm qualified to serve as city attorney. I said city attorney. The city attorney shall be appointed by majority vote of the entire board of aldermen after receiving recommendations from the city administrator. 5.7a, Eligibility. The city attorney shall be a licensed member of the Missouri Bar and shall have been in active practice of law in the state of Missouri for at least 3 years immediately preceding their appointment. The requirement that such prior active law practice be in the state of Missouri may be waived by a 2/3 vote of the Board of Aldermen. The attorney or law firm appointed shall serve for a term of 2 years, and nothing shall preclude an attorney or law firm from serving successive terms. 5.7b, Powers and Duties. The city attorney shall serve as the chief legal advisor to the Board of Aldermen, mayor, administrative staff, and all the city departments, offices, and agencies, shall represent the city in all legal proceedings, and shall perform any other duties prescribed by this charter, by ordinance, by law, or as may be required of the city attorney by the Board of Aldermen, mayor, or administrator, city administrator. The city attorney shall attend all Board of Aldermen meetings and shall receive notice of all meetings and special meetings. 5.7c, Accountability and Removal. In all respects, except that in their capacity as legal advisor to the Board of Aldermen, the city attorney shall report to and be accountable to the city administrator, and the city administrator shall render an annual performance review of the city attorney to the Board of Aldermen. The city attorney may be removed at any time with a 2/3 majority vote of the entire Board of Aldermen. 5.7d, Compensation. The Board of Aldermen shall provide for the city attorney's compensation. The city attorney shall be subject to the administrative policies and procedures of the city. At the option of the city attorney, with the concurrence of the Board of Aldermen, the city attorney's compensation may be provided by fees and may be paid directly to such officers or to the law firm or firms of which they are members or employees.
Yes, Charlotte?
We have on C, the city attorney may be removed at any time with 2/3 majority vote of the entire board of aldermen. Shouldn't in A, it also have, on the prior active law practice in the state of Missouri may be waived by a 2/3 vote of the entire board of aldermen?
Anybody want to voice their thoughts on that? Yeah, Lisa?
We're talking about being consistent, I think that would be consistent with what we're saying.
We have, we've changed this previously in other sections, so we didn't say that for the reason, I assume, being that if we had a decision where the entire Board of Aldermen had to be there, what if one person was always missing here and there? We would never get the person approved. It might really slow things down. And I would say we should be careful in how many people or positions, whatever it is, they have to approve with an entirety of the board, because, like I said, it might become extenuating circumstances. That's all.
Any other, Jason?
So I just want to clarify here. So we're saying that, at least according to this as it's written now, that the entire board doesn't have to be there when it takes a vote to affirm an appointment, but the entire board has to be there if there's a removal situation.
Right, that's correct. And that seems to be pretty consistent. I mean, the waiver of a 2/3 vote is not as, I mean, I guess it doesn't have as much weight as the actual need or possible need to remove. I mean, it seems like other charters have addressed this as when you remove something or remove somebody, it has to be the entire board, whereas when you waive something, it seems to be not the entire board.
And I see that. I just, if I understand the consistency thing too. I'm just saying that, something to think about, that if you're making an appointment, I mean, hypothetically, what you're afraid of in a situation where someone's removed is that someone's removed in a way that's somewhat unethical, that people aren't showing up. Well, the very same thing can happen with an appointment. That there could be an unethical appointment. And, I'm kind of inclined, and I understand what you're saying, that, all the other charters have written, but I'm kind of inclined with Ms. Nelson that, I think that's something that, again, protects every voice on the Board of Aldermen.
And if this is something that everybody's okay with, we can always add that word entire.
I can't see much, excuse me, but I can't see much difference in appointing somebody and then taking their job away from them. I think if the city council is going to appoint them, they need to be step up and do the same thing that they're going to.
Okay. All right. Now, Lisa, can you correct me if I'm wrong? Do we actually have a motion on the floor currently, or did we just read it? Okay. So we can always change it without having to do something with a motion. Okay. So if Charlotte, if you want to make a motion to that point, let's go ahead and do
Or
that.
we could just decide to make a
Or
change.
actually, yeah, there's no.
Yes,
there's-
anybody else?
Right, that's,
I would make a motion to accept 5.7 with the insertion of entire in section A. State of Missouri may be waived by 2/3 vote of the entire board of aldermen.
okay.
Second.
Sandy seconds. All right, now we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion? We'll take a break right after this. All right, seeing no other board discussion, we'll take a vote on, no, there's no amendment. There wasn't an original motion.
I thought that had been.
That's one I had. All right, I think we're clear now. All right. Lisa, if you're ready, or when you're ready.
Jason Green,
Yes.
Mark Moore,
Yes.
Mary Jane Van Buskirk, Ted Bowman,
Yes.
Lisa Emerson abstain, Janet Emerson,
Yes.
Sandra Hartwell,
Yes.
Charlotte Nelson,
Yes.
Michael McDonough,
Yes.
Jim Asher,
Yeah.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Steve Cutler.
Yes, motion is approved, 12-0. I'm sorry, 11-1. All right, well, let's take a 5 to 10 minute break before we head into the next article, which would be the chief of police, and that will be Ted's discussion. Thank you.
Well, actually, I have not at this, I'm down to about maybe 2 more hours to finish it, but, in trying to give, has nothing to do with Greg. In order to try to get to Ted and go through the chief of police and then also, Jason on the, parks and recreation.
All right, while we're waiting for Jim to return, Ted has spent a lot of time on trying to get a section for the chief of police done. We have approximately an hour, and it'd be nice if we can get through this, but again, we don't want to rush something and possibly miss something, so let's try to give it our fullest attention and go through with it. So Ted, you want to go ahead and start?
What I'd like to do is go through is, try to do this rather than section by section, as many as I think we can probably deal with at one time. Having said that, these first couple I know people have concerns with, so, the paper that you have in front of you has no title, but the, article title is Chief of Police, not City Marshal, like the first one I asked people to, some folks to proofread. In the first section, for eligibility, election, and term, subsection A, eligibility for office. Number 1, candidates for chief of police shall have established primary residency in the city for at least 2 years immediately preceding the election. The chief of police shall be a qualified voter of the city and shall remain a primary resident and qualified voter of the city during the entirety of their term. The only thing I want to say there is that I originally had 1 year in there, and a lot of the folks proofreading it were kind of split about whether or not 1 or 2 years was appropriate. I put 2 years in there, but as you go through the rest of the eligibility factors here, one of our former chiefs of police, who was one of the proofreaders, pointed out that unlike most elected officers, there are some significant qualification requirements that specifically describe being able to do this particular job. He remarked that if you set it at 2 years, you severely limit residents' ability to make choices under circumstances where somebody that wants to do this job is going to have to look 2 or 3 years ahead to move into the city if there are policemen somewhere else under a residency requirement, for instance, Kansas City. And it might not only hamper your list of choices, but it could also limit the quality of your candidates. So I put 2 years in here, but I offer up to you that some of the experience from our past chiefs of police suggests that might be a little limiting, given the fact that, in essence, the candidate's going to have to be a qualified policeman to begin with.
Okay, yeah, Mary Jane?
Well, I stand behind 2 years for the simple fact that people will have a chance to get to know the man that's running, and the man will have a chance to get to know the people, know how the city operates, know the layout of the city. I don't think 2 years is too long.
And I'm not arguing for one over the other. I'm bringing up the pros and cons that were presented to me by the people I asked to approve. Mary Jane is one of those, and that's one of the reasons I put the 2 years in there. One is consistent with the other positions, the other elected positions, and some would go to the opposite and argue that if you only have to live here a year, then that's a short span of preparation to come and get a job.
Right, which is what Mary Jane was kind of pointing to, I think. So, is there, yeah, Janet?
I agree with Mary Jane. I think 2 years, because I believe the chief of police is a very important part of this city, and that people need to know exactly who they're voting for. And I don't think a year will give them that information.
Okay. Yes, Sandy?
The chief of police is an important position, but it's really not any more important than the mayor or the board of aldermen. We've got those at one. Do we have those at one?
No, there are two, and that's why I rewrote, my second and third draft have 2 in here, simply to remain consistent. I only bring up that I put into one, and when I changed it, the argument from the police chief came up that you may be limiting residents' choices that way.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from this side?
And I mean, there's 2 ways to go about this. I think you read them. We can do an entire session at once if you want, for time's sake.
Well, I mean, I'd like to make sure that we got a consensus on the board. Is there anybody really in opposition of 2 years? Because I mean, I can go either way, but I'm kind of leaning to 2 years myself. Is there anybody else that would? So it sounds like a consensus of the commission is that it would be 2 years. So let's leave it at 2 years and Ted, go ahead and keep reading.
2, no person shall be elected or appointed to the office of chief of police who is not a citizen of the United States, or who is in arrears for any unpaid taxes, or who is guilty of forfeiture or defalcation during the entirety of their term. I would note that in that section that is consistent with other things that we wrote, except that I took out the word city. And that is my doing. I'll admit that right up front. That I felt like if you're going to elect a police chief and give us taxes to any other government, then
Are we writing this for an elected person?
yes, ma'am.
Yes, it is elected.
Well, you've got or appointed. Elected or appointed.
Well, there is later on in here there will be a means by which to appoint a temporary, and so you can need event that the office is.
Okay, gotcha.
That's the only place that says that up here.
Okay.
After this session, the rest of these clearly are misnumbered because I made an insertion in here, and there's 2 2s, so bear with the minutia.
Okay, Lisa has a question then, Ted.
Just randomly asking.
I'll bet.
No, just to reiterate the discussion we had with the last thing about unpaid taxes, how are we going to find out if they have any unpaid taxes other than city taxes?
I'm still of the opinion that it's not the job of the charter or even the board really to do that.
Okay.
If it's discovered that that's the case later, then unqualified is unqualified.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
The next item, which would be 3, no person shall be elected chief of police who has been convicted of any felony in any state, convicted of any crime of moral turpitude in any court within the United States, or who has been denied a license as a police officer by any state's board or commission of police officer standards or training. I pause here for expected criticism.
If you really want me to mention Bigfoot, I can do that. I'm good though.
Jason. Compose yourself.
No, I think it's good, you know, honestly. You don't want somebody who has an issue.
That's
with,
true. Oh, yes,
Yeah,
it is.
in Washington State, if you put him guilty of harassing Bigfoot.
Yes, can't hear Jason.
I'm sorry. No, I was just saying, I agree with Ted here. I think that you don't want anyone that has any type of issues or concerns in another state or municipality come here.
All right, seeing no other,
The next item would be no person shall be elected chief of police who is unable to meet the licensing requirements for a peace officer of a county of the first classification as set forth in the Missouri Revised Statutes, Chapter 590. The next one is candidates for the chief of police shall possess a bachelor's or higher degree from an accredited college or university in a field reasonably related to public administration or criminal justice, or demonstrate an equivalent combination of training and experience which provides comparable knowledge, abilities, and skills.
okay, Lisa's got a question. Okay.
3 and 4, and the new numbering, I assume licensing requirements for a peace officer are somehow different than licensing as a police officer?
Missouri, the statute is called peace officer. And peace officer of the county, the first classification in particular came out of the statutes because Jackson County is that, and the qualifications for a police officer here in St. Louis are different from the rest of the state.
Okay, is that why 3 and 4 are broken up as they are? Ish.
I'm not sure I understand.
Um,
Which 3 and 4 are you talking about?
Sorry,
All 3 and
or who has been denied a license as a police officer, such and such, or, I was just wondering why you didn't combine, who isn't able to meet the license?
The new 3 talks about any other state's board.
Okay, thanks.
The
It's
reason I
Missouri's.
paused on number 4 there is I think we could get by with taking out the words chapter 590. That's where it resides now. But if that section read, no person shall be elected chief of police who is unable to meet the licensing requirements for a peace officer of a county of the first classification as set forth in the Missouri Revised Statutes.
Yeah, that sounds
Then
good.
we're not holding.
Message for you, sir.
Yeah.
That sounds good to me.
So,
Yes, Charlotte, go ahead.
so when it talks about a county of the first classification, that's not the first class city?
No,
Okay,
it's
so
the first class county.
County, okay. All right, that's not my question, because if we go to charter, then we're not first class.
There's only 2 first class counties, and we've been in one. We still have to abide by the rules for a first class county.
Okay.
In peace officer.
Okay, excellent, thanks.
Number 5, the candidates for,
Jane.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Oh,
did you?
I had a question in 5, go ahead.
okay, candidates for the chief of police shall also possess, if you want to just jump in when I get there.
I will.
Shall also possess, 1, considerable knowledge of the principles of modern police administration and police methods. 2, considerable knowledge of the principles and accepted good practices and procedures as applied to patrol, traffic control, criminal investigation, and crime prevention. 3, knowledge of the standards by which the quality of police service is evaluated, and the use of police records and their applications to police administration. 4, knowledge of the types and uses of the weapons, automotive equipment, and the equipment used for communications, personal safety, and digital information functions of federal, state, and local jurisdictions and authorities as they relate to police work. And 6, an ability to establish and maintain effective working relationships with other city officials, state, county, and federal authorities, civic leaders, and the general public.
The only thing I have, Ted, is on number 5, you left off knowledge of, you started with the word the, so.
I started with
That's fine.
oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
just to clear that up. Jim, do you have something?
Yeah, I like all of this. I think this would work very well only if you hired or appointed your chief. But if you were gonna elect him and he filed for office, I don't know how you could prove all those things ahead of time. As opposed to you, everything above 1 through 4 you could. But when you get to these things here, you have to have an objective way of measuring those before you qualify to file for office.
I agree with that, and I originally did not have them in there. I added them in there after reviewing the only other charter I could find that had those descriptions in it. And I added them in there after the thought that, okay, these are the things that we would like to see. And in the event that you do not, or you show you cannot possess those things, now you're in a condition for employment. Yeah.
Okay.
You could make an argument for removal.
Well, whichever way we go, it has to be determined whether or not we're going to elect or indeed hire.
This whole section is written to elect.
So that, okay. Then, in order to elect, you have to have an objective way to determine whether or not they meet the qualifications before they even file for office.
Agree.
So, I don't know, I would probably,
in my thinking on that, when I first read that, I think it's the candidate's burden to prove those things at election time.
yeah,
And failing to do that, even if it's true that they have, and failing to prove it, I think cause an election.
and I support electing the chief. That means that I probably would agree we should put, number 5 in.
Okay, just to clarify, this is actually number 6, not number 5, because we have.
Because I had a number here.
Right.
I mean, I understood what we talked about it, and I see the point, and originally I said others. I think the reason that I put in there is I think that A, we need to have the discussion to decide whether to put in there. And B, I think since Belton, my understanding is they pretty much had to solve this problem on their own. And it appears that they're walking down the path saying these are the things you must do. Whether or not they remove some of that, I don't know. But I think it's a decent statement of what we want to see.
Okay, Lisa has a question, and then we'll get back down this way, and then Mary Jane, I haven't forgotten you.
Okay, that's fine.
Since it was basically brought up, who would be judging these qualifications essentially? Is there, and then Ted, you mentioned it would be the burden of the officer running for the position. Should we write in there a section of the officer has to prove these things? I mean, at least, and to whom, that way it seems a little more, it seems more specific than sort of a generic, vague,
Well, my question would be too, though, as they have to file for the position, can we not make it part of the filing requirements that they at least sign something that says that they possess these qualifications?
Well, I think you can do that, but I think Jim's point is who's going to be the objective reviewer of whether or not your knowledge is considerable of those principles. Because two of those sections require considerable knowledge, whereas just knowledge is required of some of the others. I see the argument, but it's there for us to decide whether or not it should be in there or not.
And Mary Jane, your question goes back to 5, or is it on 6?
It's, where it says, it's on 5.
Okay.
It says candidate for the chief of police shall possess a bachelor's or higher degree from an accredited college or university in a field reasonably related to public administration or criminal justice. Does that mean they can go to like ITT and get a degree in criminal justice and be qualified to be chief of police?
if it's an accredited university, yes.
Okay, and again, you're right, that's 5. I was hoping we'd finish up with 6 and then go back to you.
But I just have another comment here. We're talking about making this an elected position. I think we ought to throw it out, and discuss it. What about, an appointed chief of police? I called a lot of the cities around here today, and they all have appointed chief of police.
Yeah, I know that seems to be, like Ted was saying, the standard rule, around our community, because all we found was Dublin that actually had an elected position, so,
Sugar Creek does, and there are other cities that do, but they're not chartered.
right, at this time.
The ones I called, I think are true.
Okay,
I have 2 more questions.
all right, Jason and then Susan.
Well, first, I mean, okay, on 6, to me, I look at this as a job description. It's what this is. I like it being included. Earlier we mentioned who's the objective reviewer? It's the voters. They're the objective reviewer. I mean, this creates public accountability, having this in here, that this is what the expectations are of a police chief. And so you can have a removal process in there somehow in case they're not meeting that public accountability. But in my mind, when I see these 6 items here, the objective reviewer is the voters. Hypothetically, if this passes where the voters elect the police chief, they're going to be the ones that are objectively reviewing this individual. And in addition, it's a job description. So anyone applying or considering to be a police chief, this also shows, hey, look, this is also some line items here, like what your responsibilities are, what your duties are, and you know what, maybe it will discourage people by having this in here. Maybe I shouldn't apply for it if I'm not exactly, up to the challenge or have the experience or, temperament to do such. Being said, back on the other point, I am a firm believer of an elected police chief. I like the concept that we have a voter choice on that. And again, I'm going to say this again, I think that in terms of my views to be up here on this commission, I don't want to take any choice away from the voters. I would like to encourage more voter autonomy, and that's why I do support that our police chief is elected.
Okay, Susan, and then Mary Jane.
I also like the idea of an elected police chief, I fear that, although I like the outline of the knowledge that chief of police shall possess, I fear that is a little ambiguous. As someone else mentioned, how do you measure a man's knowledge in that way? And the word shall in the opening sentence seems to imply that there may be a consequence for not possessing the specific knowledge. And certainly there is. But it's just how do you measure that knowledge that concerns me.
And if, Mary Jane, if you don't mind, I'd like to speak into that just a little bit. If I was somebody running for chief of police and I possessed all these qualifications, I think that would be a platform that I'd be running on. So, I mean, it would already be out there in front of the people. So I'm okay with trying to identify some areas that, the voters have a chance to look at specific considerations that the chief of police would have to meet. And so that's just my thoughts. So Mary Jane.
Well, I was going to say within elected chief of police, I don't think in the 42 years I've lived here I've ever had anybody that was running for chief of police come to my door and tell me why I should vote for him. As a matter of fact, I don't think there's ever been 2 of them that have ran to oppositions. There's always been just one person running. And to me, it kind of seems like it's a popularity contest. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm probably going to get these 2 policemen mad at me, and I'm going to get a ticket before I ever leave the parking lot tonight.
No, you won't.
I'm going to speak my mind. you know?
I'm going the way you're not going.
Yeah. One was my neighbor, but the other lives on the other side of the highway, so I don't stand a chance.
All right, I'm gonna go to Mike and then to Lisa and then to Mark. Okay,
I want to get on your list too.
okay.
I'll make several statements here about the elected chief. In past times when people have written charters, it was well known by people on the charter commission, from what I understand, that people wanted it to be left as an elected position. As Jason says, the people could decide who they wanted to elect as their chief of police or marshal. Being a policeman for a long time, listening to people talk about how things have gone around in the state after they made them appointed in a lot of smaller towns, the outcome hasn't been too good because they've gone through the chief very quickly, it appears, which doesn't do the department very good. The people I've talked to have all said that they want to stay elected, they want their say-so about who they have as chief. And there have been a lot of races where there have been sometimes 2 or 3 people that have run their chief at the same time.
Someone came to my door.
I'm just saying that there are times when there have been 2, 3, 4 people.
I don't doubt
times
that.
4 of them.
Okay.
But that's what I've heard is people want to be elected, they want their say-so, just like with a lot of the other things in this charter. And the other thing is being law enforcement. I've heard a lot of times when some of these other places have gone to the point that they've ended up not getting what they thought they were going to get.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna go to Lisa and then Mark and then Jim now.
Regarding the knowledge of sections, I think they go back to, for instance, a city administrator and city clerk, where we say under eligibility, they shall be appointed on the basis of their qualifications. We don't necessarily judge them and have them take a written test, so unless we want to get detailed on each one. I mean, I see the benefits of having them display that they know how to use firearms and whatnot, but I guess it would be, what's the word? Consistent, yes.
It's the consensus, I can cut it out, like I say, this is an additional day after.
I think it sounds good to me. I mean, I like the idea of the fact that they're not just walking in blind, but I don't know if it hurts anything to leave it in, you know what I mean? And as somebody said, it could be used as a platform when they're running for that. But the other 2 little minor questions I had were on what the new 5 is. When it says accredited college or university, I assume we're not university in lowercase. Otherwise, we'd capitalize.
Again, that's a cut and paste.
Right, I was just making sure. And on 6.6, when it says other city officials, are we talking about our city or different cities? Because I didn't know whether to capitalize city or not. Okay. Okay, I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, then it would be small. Okay, Jim and then Mary Jane. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
I think Mark.
You're right.
I just want to kind of follow what Mary was saying, because I kind of agree with her. You know, again, but the public is, I agree the public has to vote, but like, how do you differentiate from an elected official, politician? Anyone elected is a politician. So that's something that I don't know how the public can differentiate. Maybe they get themselves in a lot of trouble over that, but I can see where someone would be appointed as chief of police as they work their way up through the ranks, as these gentlemen have, and you know, you're there, you know what these men are capable of, and I think we don't have a whole lot of selection here in Raytown, so their resume would speak for itself.
Okay, Jim.
Well, so first of all, I do agree with you that these are things that are truly, truly important that you want in your chief of police. The key thing that I focus on here is that you're using the term eligibility in the election term. And first of all, to be objective is not something that's observable, but rather it is measurable. You have to be able to measure. If you're familiar with high school tests, any test, it's got A, B, C, or D, true and you have a score, and you can measure it, it is what it is. Limiting things, unless you have a way of measuring it, is something you can determine the person is eligible to file for office. So, it could be included though under maybe, the job description in another section, possibly. But as far as making eligible to file for office to be elected, it's not possible unless you come up with some test that you can make it work. Now, I do think it's important, I'll go on with Ted said, these are things that you like to see to be sure of in your chief of police. And what you could do is that you could create, if you put that in the job description, you could create an oversight commission of elected officials and citizens to serve as a elected commission. For example, the Jackson County judges have a commissioner, and they have a commission that oversees all the judges in the courts in Jackson County. So we could create within our charter such a commission of so many elected officials and citizens that could serve as oversight to be sure that all these things are being met by the chief of police. That way that you can still elect your chief and at the same time be sure that he's meeting all these qualifications. And I think it also provides a good medium by which the public can go to the commissioner and make an appeal or complain or whatever if they had to do that. I don't think we have that now, but I'm just throwing these thoughts out as possibilities.
Mary Jane?
Okay, I'm gonna ask a question, and maybe you guys can answer, because I asked my husband, and he said, don't ask me, ask the guys who know. So, okay, here goes. Who does the chief of police report to?
Voters.
Pardon me?
Voters.
Voters.
You mean now, today, right?
Right now, if there was a problem down in the department, a big stir, nobody would know about it except the police department, right?
Probably not. Because if somebody in the police department, in their capacity, created a liability for the city as a whole, the city has to defend against it. There's no way an elected police chief could hide that. If one of us, if I were to go out on a car stop and I were to assault somebody or some other way, shape, or form abuse them, the city's liable for that. Because of my office, I am a police officer, and whether it's the chief that said that's okay, or the city that said that's okay, the city's the one that's on the hook. So, the chief is answerable because I work for that department. He set the rules, he selected the employees, but in the end, the city has to defend itself for the way the police department conducts its business.
Okay, if we had an appointed chief of police, why couldn't you have a police board? An appointed police board?
If you like to government that way, you obviously can have a police board. You could write it into a charter, the city council could decide they were going to do it. There's all kinds of ways to do that. The idea about whether or not a police chief should be elected or appointed, I think, is one of choice here in a town this size. And when we've discussed it in the past, my feeling is that I think it's what people here want. As a policeman, from a professional standpoint, I think the advantage that is given to Raytown in past years has been an autonomy by the police chief that's allowed them to set standards that, at least in my career, I've been lucky enough to have been reasonably high. But that's not guaranteed by having an elected police chief. It could certainly go the other way.
Okay, here's another question I have. You come to the city for your money, for your budget, but you're not under the authority, so to speak, of the city. You're under the authority of your chief of police, right?
Yeah, I'm still subject to the personnel rules of the city. The chief can't take those away. He can ask you, but I have
to no one on the city level. Am I correct in that?
Yes. I think he participates with the city government, but he's not the whole of the city government. I think the arguments in the past has been, in fact, I know there have been arguments that the city administrator could feel constrained by the fact that I have no control over the police chief. In fact, I've heard it in the past.
Well, all these cities I called today that have an appointed chief of police, the chief of police reports to the city administrator, he reports to the mayor, he reports to the board of aldermen. He has some level of authority above him, which we don't have here.
I think that's correct. Well, unless you don't consider the voters that little. If you pardon me, Jack.
Okay, that's okay. I got my answers, thank you.
Steve,
Yes, Jason.
Nancy pros and cons to the police chief. I can't. The one thing I think we have to consider though is that if a chief is appointed, not that this can happen anyway, but that when political winds change, if you will, that certain things will be done with political influence that may not be in the best decision of the department. And that really is my concern with an appointed position. Now, I'm not saying that can't happen without a appointed position, but I think the likelihood that influence that may be contrary to what a police department's goals maybe should be could take place with an appointed position. I think the likelihood of that is expanded. And that's the concern I have with an appointed chief.
Susan.
I have to agree with Jason that it's a concern to me that there may rest the possibility of some undue influence on an appointed police chief. I'm very comfortable with the idea of an elected one.
All right. So, I'm sorry, Sandy.
I was thinking about what Jim was saying earlier. When somebody files for office, they're required to prove that they paid their taxes and all this other stuff. And if this is part of what is going to be required by a chief of police who's going to run, someone who's going to run as the chief of police, that person, when he files with the city, should be given this and then be able to approve it, just like we do when we have to sign all that stuff.
I think that's kind of what I was saying too earlier. I mean, why can't you just put it as part of the election process?
Right.
Well, personally, I mean, I'll go back to the fact that when we all ran for our position and everything like that, I think we were trying to keep, I don't want to say status quo, but as much of what is our current city government intact, and so I'm really on the side of the elected position. My question would be, is it possible, even if he's elected, just like the board of aldermen have to be responsive to their own selves, the mayor has to be responsive to it, could we not put something in there that the chief of police needs to coordinate the efforts of the city or something like that with the board of aldermen? I mean, is that something, Ted, that would cause some disruption? But because I can see Mary Jane's point too. I mean, who does he answer to? And
well, wouldn't that be kind of arbitrary? I mean, if there's a major emergency, say there's a giant riot and that Walmart is being ransacked and so forth. I really wish it would, but anyway, that so The chief of police would be the immediate NCOIC on the scene. And then, of course, the mayor would be talking to him, hey, how's it going, what are we doing, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't see where he'd say, Mayor, you're in charge, so what do we do? You know, it's kind of like the second lieutenant leading
Well, and I wouldn't,
up the hill when he's never had any battle.
and I don't think we need to take his responsibilities away. I just think he needs to work in a coordinated effort with the Board of Aldermen. I mean, when an incident like that might arise, I mean, he needs to do his job.
Yeah, he would be there anyway, so,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a moot point.
So I'm asking you two guys what you might.
I think later in your duties,
Yeah.
it does describe that they have responsibilities to the board.
Okay.
They can't operate the department, first off, without a budget. And we discussed, you and I discussed last night, budget's not just about money, it's not about planning. And if the board of aldermen does not approve directions, this city's going, and send it back, you're gonna have to come up with another plan. So I think the duties later on, if you're described, will cover that. And in the second part of that, you can imagine something catastrophic happening. Other than the fact that the chief here now is the emergency preparedness director, even under those conditions, it's the mayor who is the one that's going to be held accountable by the state for management of that crisis, whether it's a riot, or an ice storm, or whatever. When it gets really bad, and you have to ask for help, the mayor's the one that's going to be the boss, whether your police chief's elected or not.
All right, Jason.
I think the ordinance mentioned that in the mayor's section, accessible to that very emergency.
I think it's statutorily, I'm thinking without.
All right, I mean, this is all great discussion. I learned a lot myself, but Jim, did you have something?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it's annoying me.
First of all, I'll go back to what I said before. I think that the concept of the elected chief makes sense because it's been traditional. Our old city has had to knock on doors a lot of times. So most people are comfortable with that. Some of the things that I want to mention to the rest of the board is, number one is, in eligibility for office, you have to have a degree from college, but doesn't have to have been a graduate of the police academy, which means that he's going to be serving as a primary administrator over people who, that's the precise thing they have to be in that job.
You know, fairness, that's covered in the training session too.
And so I think it boils down to two things that I think that I kind of hear from the other members of the committee, and one would be an example of policy. We don't often, even as a board, ever discuss police policy. And I'm just going to give an example, and I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but the demands of the police department to maintain the safety of the city are great. I mean, it's not just a few things. For example, every time, and I've been an alderman that's done this, who've requested that we put up stop signs inside neighborhoods at the request of our constituents. Because the constituents said, hey, we had a kid killed on the street, we'd like to have a stop sign. Then the question is, are we going to enforce the stop sign? And that's sort of policy, it would say, well, there's no question about that. Well, that's not true, because how we enforce the laws, and if we enforce it and how we enforce it, is really a policy set by the police department. For example, I was told once by a chief, I've served 16 years, he's been one chief, so, three actually, he said, we don't enforce stop signs inside neighborhoods. We just don't have that size of force that we could do that. We have citizens that say, hey, listen, cars are racing by here, it's dangerous, we want you to at least occasionally post a policeman there and give tickets out. And policy would say, no, we don't do that. And that is the policy determined by the chief. He makes that policy, only he makes that policy, any answer to nobody. Even though the citizens may be demanding, this is our neighborhood, we have a sign there that the law says, and he may say, no, we're not gonna do it. And that's his prerogative, because he is the chief. And so, another one would be, you know, do we require, the police department to do occasional drive through the neighborhood? Again, that's policy set by the chief, and that's his job. Whether they do that at all, or how much they do that, is only his responsibility. He answers to nobody. Even though the citizens might be saying, we want to think police in our neighborhood more. And there's no bridge between the chief and the constituents who have elected him. And I've never heard of a constituent that said, I felt like I had any leverage over the police department. And that's what I'm hearing a little bit, that says, you know, at least we should have the ability to question or policy that I'm talking about here. So, and again, I'll go back to what I said, that's a big job maintaining all the laws of the state and the city within the city. One of the examples I give, some cities use the police department even to serve tickets for violations of codes, and we don't do that. But some cities do that. So, I guess I would make a suggestion, at least to think about, between, excuse me, tonight and next meeting, is that we could stop with 4.
You mean 5?
No, I mean 4. As requirement to be eligible for office. I'm sorry, A to 4.
This is actually 5, because there's 2 twos.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. That was 5. I'm reading new here, okay? So that's my fault. Okay, again, it's not that big of a deal. Just stop there, and where it says number 5, you could restate that to say, the chief of police shall demonstrate, all these things below. And that would not be a matter of eligibility.
I was about to propose that we just strike 5 and 6. I mean, number 7, 5, and accept subsection A without those 2.
Is there a reason, Ted, why you're dropping 5?
The degree.
But you've also left a alternative in there for, or demonstrate an equivalent combination of. So there's an option there, or all
The only
alternative.
reason I was proposing dropping those doesn't look like I had since those 2 both came from the same place. They weren't in either of my original drafts, or either of my first 2 drafts. That, you know, it's like you said, it's an elected position. I mean, if you want to say that the election chief has to have a degree or whatever, I guess that's fine, or you can make it a part of your campaign, I guess. My opponent doesn't have a degree.
And all I'm saying is, don't use that to be part of what it takes to be eligible for office, but include it in the charter somewhere. And you might even consider that, the oversight committee, or commission, or board, to make sure that the chief is demonstrating these requirements. It's just a thought.
Given that you have a commission like that, how would you evaluate it? I mean, you know, it's like you said, you know, you got the checklist, are they considerable knowledge of principles, blah, blah, blah. How are you gonna measure that? I mean, and even if you go candidates for the chief of police shall demonstrate, and you have 1 through 6 there.
Well, I don't think that has to be measured. I just, what I'm saying is that you're holding, at least there is, in time of crisis or emergency, or even, for example, in other major type of events that we've recently had, if there were questions were arisen that arose during that time, we would have something to fall back on to ask questions to. At least there would be someone held accountable. That's all.
Part of my thought is, striking this is, if we get through A with the five that I presume are acceptable, if somebody feels strongly about the other two, we can amend them. I'm not married to either one, really. I believe that the residents rate I want to elect their police chief. I have no intention to pass a judgment on that one way or the other. I've worked under those conditions for 34 years. And I've had opinions, pro and con for both. As far as writing a charter, I think it's what folks want. That's the reason I went ahead and looked for a way to create that.
Okay, great. One last comment, Janet, and then we need to make a decision, move on.
I was going to make a motion. May I?
I think we've had enough discussion.
Okay. I make a motion that we accept it as renumbered, the eligibility for office through number 7, striking out the chapter 560, and also in number 3 services, the R struck out because is there.
I'm sorry, I'm totally confused now. What are we striking now?
Okay.
I think you need to have it in there before you start.
There's a place where it says is R, striking R, and then striking out chapter number
590.
and your motion is to accept all of that.
Yes, and number 6, the city there should be capitalized.
Added in an extra. City and city. One capital, one lowercase, so our city.
One city. I don't understand that. Okay.
Well, my suggestion to her was if we put in an ability to establish and maintain effective working relationships with other city capital and city lowercase. I don't know, I was just covering all the bases since you covered all the other bases. And I reread it and I thought it was still a little bit confusing when I reread it, so that's all.
All right.
Whatever. Here, I think what Lisa said.
Well, I think, Lisa, by keeping it a small c, you're basically including all
Yeah, no, it
cities.
just was confusing still the second time.
Okay, the only one,
One other correction.
okay, I'm still missing the second correction.
Okay, the second one is number 3.
Okay.
The letter, number 3. Down here, knowledge of the standards by which the quality of police service is evaluated. There's an R is.
Okay, okay.
Take that out.
And then chapter 590, and your third one then?
Okay, and my last one is number 5. Criminal justice or demonstrate an instead of the D on the end of that. That should be taken off. An equivalent combination.
Yeah,
And university is lowercase.
Right.
In number 6, should that be equal instead of singular, the cities?
Knowledge of the standards by which the quality of police service is evaluated.
No, because it's connected to,
Is
it's,
evaluated.
Other cities?
other city officials is what, is that?
Other city officials.
Okay, officials is plural, so. All right, we do have a motion then with those minor corrections.
What does it include then? I'm not sure.
Janet has actually made a motion to approve all the way through 7. Okay. As it is with the minor corrections that she's made. Okay, I mean, she can make a motion to that. It's whether or not it becomes seconded, and then it's voted on. Okay, so there is a motion.
I'll read it unless you don't want me to.
All right. Mike is
Who, the motion?
seconded.
Who motion? Your mother?
Janet motion.
Okay.
Michael seconded. And if you want to reread it with all the minor corrections.
Are we all good? Do we need it reread?
Reread it.
Okay, I will. 6 point. All right. Stop me if I'm incorrect. 6.1 eligibility election and term. Eligibility for office. 1. Candidates for chief of police shall have established primary residency in the city for at least 2 years immediately preceding the election. The chief of police shall be a qualified voter of the city and shall remain a primary resident and qualified voter of the city during the entirety of their term. 2. No person shall be elected or appointed to the office of chief of police who is not a citizen of the United States or who is in arrears for any unpaid taxes or who is guilty of forfeiture of defalcation during the entirety of their term. 3. No person shall be elected chief of police who has been convicted of any felony in any state, convicted of any crime or moral turpitude in any court within the United States, or who has been denied a license as a police officer by any state's board or commission of police officer standards or training. 4. No person shall be elected chief of police who is unable to meet the licensing requirements for a peace officer of a county of the first classification set forth in the Missouri Revised Statutes. 5. Candidates for the chief of police shall possess a bachelor's or higher degree from an accredited college or university in a field reasonably related to public administration or criminal justice, or demonstrate an equivalent combination of training and experience which provides comparable knowledge, abilities, and skills. 6. Candidates for the chief of police shall also possess 1. Considerable knowledge of the principles of modern police administration and police methods, and I'm putting semicolons on the end of these to match the rest of the document. 2. Considerable knowledge of the principles and accepted good practices and procedures as applied to control, traffic control, criminal investigation, and crime prevention. 3. Knowledge of the standards by which the quality of police service is evaluated and the use of police records and their application to police administration. 4. Knowledge of the types and uses of the weapons, automotive equipment, and the equipment used for communications, personal safety, and digital information management in modern police work. 5. Knowledge of the functions of federal, state, and local jurisdictions and authorities as they relate to police work. And 6. An ability to establish and maintain effective working relationships with other city officials, state, county, and federal authorities, civic leaders, and the general public. And the next one. 7. The chief of police shall maintain these conditions of eligibility throughout their term of office or shall forfeit that office.
Okay, it's been motioned, seconded, reread with corrections. Any additional discussion will allow one comment per person and then we will vote. Yes, Jim?
I guess my question would be if, let's say Mark filed for this office to be elected, and I went up to the city hall and said, I don't think he's eligible because he does not have the knowledge of the standards by which the quality of police service are evaluated, and the use of police records. He's never been in the police force before, and his application to police administration, he's not qualified. How would the court determine whether or not he was or not qualified? Because that objection would be made to the court, not to him or to the city. How would that be determined?
I think Jason might have an answer.
Well, I think there's a section in here that talks about having appropriate training and such, making the officers don't have a degree. And I really like that there, section 5. I like that in terms of
Section 6.
Section 6. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I can't count. But anyway, kind of goes into that when you get your education requires and such. And then there's other sections that talk about
And my comment would be if I wanted to scrutinize the candidate's campaign, it would be the easy way to do it. You'd have to prove it in front of the court. And everybody would be reading about it, you'd be questioning it.
Any other comments from this side? All right, we have a motion. Oh, Charlotte.
With number 7, and it's like, how do you know, and we have a question about the qualifications and stuff, but jumping ahead like I do, under So if you go back to this, it's not listed there. I don't know if I listed that right here. Well, yeah, but who's been denied a license as a police officer. So they have to, if they're gonna be and have a current police officer's license, they would have to know and have quite knowledge of all those 6 things that are listed, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, granted, they could, been, did it say current police?
That's what I was trying to figure out. Also, like license, and they need the license of our department, so also the county counters, that's what we have to county.
But it didn't say you have to have a license.
Or be current.
All right. Any other comments? We'll take a vote on this. Lisa, please.
Ted Bowman. Janet Emerson.
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Charlotte Nelson.
No.
Steve Gunther.
Yes.
Susan Dolan.
Yes.
Michael McDonough.
Yes.
Greg Walter. Jason Green.
Yes.
Jim Major.
No.
Sandra Hartwell.
Yes.
Ray Jean Van Busker.
Nope.
Mark Moore.
Yes.
Ted Bowman.
Motion carries then for Section A by a vote of 9-3. It is right now approximately 9 minutes till. Ted, do you think we can get through the training part of it since it's pretty straightforward in 5 minutes?
The training requirements. Number one, any person who is elected to their first term as chief of police shall, within 6 months of such election, also file with the city clerk proof that they have successfully completed the certification requirements pursuant to Missouri revised statutes.
Striking out Chapter 590 again. Okay.
The chief of police will maintain a current police officer license as is required of any Missouri police officer of the county of first classification, including all of the required continuing education. And C, election and term at a regular municipal election 2 years following the election of the mayor. The chief of police shall be elected by the qualified voters of the city at large to serve a 4-year term.
I make a motion that we approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we'll take a vote.
Janet Emerson.
Yes.
Steve Gunther.
Yes.
Mark Moore.
Yes.
Lisa Emerson, yes. Charlotte Nelson.
Yeah.
Michael McDonough.
Yes.
Ted Bowman.
Yes.
Jim Major.
Yes.
Susan Dolan.
Yes.
Jason Green. Sandra Hartwell. Mary Jane Van Busker. No.
Motion carries 11-1. All right. I think we'll stop there for this evening, but before anybody gets up and leaves, I'll take a motion. Well, not yet a motion to adjourn. I got some business. One, our next meeting in October goes back to Mondays.
Our next meeting is still Tuesday.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're still in September.
We still have September meeting 2 weeks from tonight on the 23rd. What's that? It's a Tuesday.
Tuesday, September 23rd.
Right, October is back on Mondays, but we still have one more in September, which is September 23rd. I mean,
That's been updated on the website.
yes, it is updated on the website. And then one other thing, based on the current process that we're making, or progress that we're making, I would like to get in the next couple of minutes a confirmation of anybody who would like to sit on the marketing subcommittee, because I think it's time that we begin the work on that committee. So I'll take volunteers at this point. Okay, we got Janet.
Susan Dolan.
Susan, thank you.
I get,
What's that? All right, thank you, Michael. Sandy? Sandy? You can have, how many? Up to 5 or 6? Oh, I guess we can have as many as we want, yeah. I think that would be determined, yeah, we can, yeah, that's gonna have to be determined by the group. So, what I can do is we can get out an email after we know who the group is, and then try to see what time they can meet and where. Okay. Okay, Charlotte. And I'll go ahead and sit on it myself too. Okay, so right now I've got Janet, Susan, Michael, Sandy, Charlotte, and myself. Is that correct? All right. And anybody can add their name and become a part of this group, because I think this is going to be the group that is going to shoulder a lot of getting this thing passed. I mean, we can write a great charter, and 90% of the people can be happy with it, but if they don't hear it, then it's still going to be something that might be not voted in approval of. So, all right, we will get that out. I appreciate everybody, and anybody that wants to make a motion to adjourn.
Wait.
Okay, we don't. I'm sorry, Janet.
Please keep all of the documents that we have not voted on, so I don't have to reprint them next time.
Correct.